What's up? Happy Tuesday to you. If it's Tuesday, it's Jason Sukamel Day. Jason's here to break down recruiting. It's a big 2026 Junior Day. I can't believe there's a recruiting event that's happening just
You
a
can't
few weeks.
believe it. Anwar, you can't believe it. I got to be out there Saturday all damn day, man.
I can't. I literally can't believe it, Jason. But Jason, you got recruiting there. I want to talk like 2026 and put that on the radar. But Jason, I do want to start with a little bit of last night. What did you think about the game itself? I know someone says no sucker talk, but that's all right, Gabe. We got to talk football, so we can't avoid it. What did you think of that kind of that started off as an ass kicking, and then there's a little bit of a comeback?
Yeah, man. My biggest takeaway from that, Anwar, that game, is that I gained some respect from Notre Dame. When it went 21-7 and then 28-7 coming out of half, I was like, oh, man, they're going to get boat race. But you know what? They fought back. They made it competitive, made it interesting. I'll be honest. I turned it off for a minute, and I was kind of keeping track on my phone. And I was like, oh, I can turn this game back on. So, I thought Notre Dame, what they did that first drive, I was like, if they can do that all game, obviously they scored a touchdown, but I was like, if they can just chew up clock and kind of 4 yards here, 5 yards there, I thought they had a chance for the upset. But it was just a disastrous second quarter and start to the third quarter. But, I give credit to Notre Dame for battling back and making it somewhat interesting.
Yeah, I mean, somewhat interesting. I guess Texas can, I guess now in back-to-back years, they'll go on the road and face the defending national champ, right? So Michigan 1 year, Ohio State will be this upcoming season. So that'll be another interesting task. I've had a question, Jason, just real quick on that. It's kind of a recruiting thing. The question I'm going to ask is not judging the Texas staff as far as recruiting is concerned, but when I do see Jaden Greathouse out there, when I do see a Leonard Moore out there, these are guys who are 10 miles from campus at most, both of those guys. Again, everything happens for a reason, but I am curious as to what happened to those guys in recruiting, because from what I just remember, I don't think Texas pursued them that heavily.
They didn't on Moore. You're right. They did not on Moore. I think he visited maybe for like a junior day or something once, but never really pursued him. Greathouse was interesting. There was a time when, from what I was told, and Jaden would probably deny this, but I was told he was pretty much a lock for Texas. Now, that was when Tom Herman was there. The different staff, of course. He's related to Oscar Giles. So that was when Oscar Giles was on staff. I was told, hey, he's going to probably go to Texas. They changed the staff, obviously, and he just fell in love with Notre Dame and never really looked at Texas that much. I mean, there was a little bit of conversation after he committed to Notre Dame about maybe he would take a Texas visit. Never came to fruition. He just really liked Notre Dame. But, yeah, you're right, man. Both those guys kind of grew up in the shadows of the 40 acres, and neither one really gave Texas much of a look, and they both turned out to be pretty good college players, really good college players.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're both young too. So, I mean, again, can't get them all, but in hindsight, it's always 2020. But I was watching it. I was just always kind of curious when you see some of the locals.
It was always a debate on Orange Bloods too, like Jaden Greathouse, like, oh, he's not super fast and he's not the twitchiest athlete. But I'm like, I was always in the campus like, dude, that dude's just a football player. That guy's just a good football player. I mean, yeah, he played at Westlake, so he had talent around him and people that could get him the ball. But that guy dominated good teams at the high school level. And, sometimes I get it, we're all about measurables and 40 times and vertical leaps and hand size. But sometimes you just got to look at a dude and be like, that dude just makes plays, man. That dude every single week. And he didn't put up big numbers this year. I mean, we're building him up to be some Bolitnikov candidate or something. But he's just a good football player. When the chips were on the table last night, the game before, he came up big for Notre Dame. He's just a good football player, when he needs to be.
Yeah, I think it's just his playoff performance has probably been, those last two games, Jason's been he's got over 100 in the last two. So I think that's probably why he's got a lot of, love and attention. But enough of him. It's fine. Jason, okay, so we're going to cross over into 2026, okay, in the 2026 recruiting class. By the way, is my internet okay? Because
it's a little glitchy, but I mean, for me, I don't But you're mostly clear. Yeah.
Eh, I mean, listen, Spectrum is tough on a good day, let alone
Yeah.
on a cold day. Like it is going to be what it is. The thing I started thinking about, Jason, was you got Junior Day that's coming around the corner, and instead of giving me like a Junior Day preview at the moment, I want you to break it down for everybody who isn't as in tune as you are. I want to know who the hell are the top guys that Texas should be going after in this 2026 class. Now, a lot of that's going to be the state of Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know Diabell, right? And maybe we start there. They've already have him committed. I find it fascinating that Georgia just offered him last week when he's been committed to Texas for seven months already.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's really a compliment, Georgia, and I don't know the hell's in charge of recruiting, but I know it makes a headline, but if you offer a guy 7 months after he's recruited, I'm not quite sure what kind of impact that's supposed to have, Jason.
Well, it's weird because
that's a recruited 7 months after he committed. Not recruited. 7 months after he committed.
Right. Dia actually camped at Georgia, but they didn't offer him because they had another quarterback committed at the time. So now all of a sudden they go by his school last week, I guess it was, to evaluate other players, and they end up offering Diabell. But Dia can't even participate. He's still suffering. He had a lower leg injury that ended his junior season. So he's not even, I guess you can go out there and throw the ball a little bit, but the timing of it's really weird. Dia this week, I wrote about him in my 3-2-1. He said, "Hey man, we'll see." He's flattered by the offer, of course. It's Georgia, but he said his head is on getting to Austin and getting to UT and competing for a spot at Texas. He'll be in Austin this weekend for the Junior Day on Saturday. So, yeah, the timing of the offer. Listen, he's a top national player. He's a top 50 player. He's going to get offers, and there'll be other offers that come in. But, yeah, the timing of that one was a little bit odd, other than that, hey, it is a spring evaluation, or not really spring, I guess, or January evaluation. Teams are out on the road, scouting players. But, I don't think Texas has anything to be worried about with Diabell. He seems really happy with his Texas commitment.
Jason, I put him on the screen. Is this the guy? Is this the guy that you say to yourself, if there's the number one guy that Texas needs to obtain, it is John Turntine III? Yeah,
Anwar. If I'm picking one player, he would probably be the one. First off, he's a fantastic player. I don't even know. Let me pull this up. So Rivals has him just outside of 5-star, but if he holds that national ranking of number 31 that you see there, he will be a 5-star if he holds that ranking. But in fact, I expect that he'll probably go up from that national number 31. I think he's even better than that. But he's kind of he's an important player. He's at a key position. He plays. He can play left tackle for you. Texas obviously needs to restock that offensive line. If I'm picking one guy in this class, especially after missing on Michael Fasusi, that elevated Turntine's importance for Texas. So if I'm picking one guy in this class and I say, okay, he is a must get, it's probably John Turntine. Now, I actually said the same thing last year about Michael Fasusi, who ends up going to Oklahoma. Yeah. A lot of people were saying DeCorian Moore. DeCorian's a phenomenal player. But I said, I went with Fasusi last year as the one must get, just because I thought Texas needed offensive line depth more than they did wide receiver. I feel the same way, even more so this year after missing on Fasusi. So, yeah, John Turntine, phenomenal prospect. He's a maybe to be in Austin this weekend. I caught up with his dad yesterday, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he's going to come. He's going to come." Well, as of yesterday, it's a maybe. It's not a done deal that he's going to be in Austin this weekend for the Junior Day. So we'll keep an eye on that. I think he'll show, just because my gut tells me he'll show, because he normally does show up to every UT recruiting event, but it's not a locked in dead set deal that he's going to be at the Junior Day this weekend, not as of yesterday afternoon.
Wasn't some of the thought a little bit last year, Jason, that especially that turn time, even if they miss on Fasusi, that's okay if they save the money for turn time next year. Like, because it was the question was like, do you want to pay Fasusi this much? And it was like, well, you know what? Turn time is the guy you break the bank for. It wasn't that some of the conversations behind the scenes?
A little bit. It made Fasusi a little bit more manageable if you didn't get him, if you will, because you knew turn time was waiting in the wings. And, the way things kind of worked out, I mean, you had Trevor Gooseby, who looks like he's the next big thing for Texas at left tackle, right? So, this time last year, Anwar, and last summer, we were like, oh, you cannot miss on Michael Fasusi. You got to have him. You got to have him. Now we're like, okay, hey, Fasusi wasn't going to beat out Trevor Gooseby anyways, so he's probably going to sit for a couple of years. But now turn time, he could potentially, he's got one more year. Gooseby will be the starter next year. Maybe turn time comes in, sits maybe 1 year behind Trevor Gooseby before he's thrown to the wolves. So, in hindsight, missing on Fasusi wasn't the death blow that people thought it was for the offensive line. And he's a phenomenal player. I mean, he's great at the Under Armour All-American game. He'll be a great player for Oklahoma. For how long? Who knows? We'll see if he portals out at some point if that coaching staff doesn't get it together. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that was always kind of, it made it a soft landing, if you will, if Texas didn't get Michael Fasusi. Some of that was just Texas fans making excuses. It's okay. Hey, we can deal without him because, we got turn time coming in the down the pike next year. But hey, there's no guarantee that Texas is going to get John turn time either. So, but yeah, you're right. It did. There was some of that talk last year that, hey, if they don't get Fasusi, it's okay as long as they get turn time. Well, you didn't get Fasusi. Now your backs are against the wall. You better get John turn time because, I mean, again, there's a reason we're talking about him as the potentially most important player in this recruiting cycle for Texas.
If he is number one, does that make KJ Edwards number two, Jason?
Sorry, I'm muting my team's thing in the background.
That's okay.
Yeah. That's a good question. KJ would be up there, as you have up there, the running back out of Carthage, Rivals 100 player. Some people would argue that he's maybe not even the number one running back. You got Javion Osborne too in that mix.
Now, Rivals has him ranked number one in the position, correct?
Rivals does. Now I don't know, is he ranked as an all-purpose back, Javion? Or I'm sorry, KJ?
KJ, they
just like as a running back. So sometimes they'll rank him as an all-purpose.
Hold on, I'll click on the position thing here. Is that where you're looking? I just see running back here.
So Javion's number 3. So yeah, but I mean, some people would kind of dispute those rankings and just say, hey, you can see Tredarian Ball there, another Texan committed to Oregon. I think you can put all those guys into a hat and you might get different takes on who's the best player. But KJ who would be number 2? That's a really good question. I mean, KJ Edwards would be in that discussion. I think Jalen Lott and Caden Finley, the 2 receivers, would be in that discussion. I think there's a linebacker out of Georgia. He's not an in-state guy, but Tyler Atkinson's he's a 5-star linebacker. I think Texas needs linebacker help and linebacker depth. I think Tyler Atkinson would be in that position. And you can even talk about other offensive linemen. I mean, Felix Ojo. You can talk about some other offensive linemen. I mean, Texas has such a needed offensive lineman. Here. I'm not sure that if your top guy's turn time, your number 2 guy might also be an offensive lineman. It might be Zayden Crampton or Felix Ojo. I mean, they have that along the offensive line. Ben G there mentioned Toa Katoa. I mean, he's another one. So luckily for Texas, they need offensive line, and it is a deep offensive line class in the state of Texas.
So now that we've just kind of gone 1 and maybe potentially 2, for those who don't follow recruiting super heavily and casual, give me the names, Jason. We mentioned 2, but who are the big hitter names, whether it's state of Texas, outside the state of Texas, that we'll be talking about for months to come? Who are the guys that I need to put on our radar?
I'm going to pull up the guys that Texas has offered. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to sort them on my other screen here by ranking. And
You can share. You can if you want to. Do you know how to share? I can share that for you if you
yeah, I
want.
don't even know how to do that. And I got so many tabs.
Okay,
Uh,
I got you. I got you.
I probably should learn that, right? That'd be helpful for the future. But there's a lot of guys. Excuse me.
How are you sorting it, Jason? How are you
You go
sorting?
to offers, right?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay, and then you go to the RR where it's like
Uh
6.1.
huh.
Da da da. Yeah.
Okay, that's how you're gonna sort it.
Yes, that's their
Yeah, I
rivals
got that.
ranking.
Hold on,
Yeah.
I can share that on the
Um,
screen so everyone
Yeah,
can
that's
see.
good. If you can do that, we'll kind of go through it because a lot of these guys Texas has offered, but they're not really players for. Yeah, perfect, right there. They're not really major players for. But you see there, Blaine Bradford, a safety out of Louisiana. He really likes Texas. He's a 5-star guy. I mentioned Tyler Atkinson, big time linebacker out of Loganville, Grayson High School in Loganville, Georgia. He's already visited Texas a couple times on where he'll be back.
Mhm.
Probably not this weekend, but he'll be back at some point. If you scroll down a little bit, you see there Deuce Gerald's, the defensive tackle. Texas is in a good position, and I say good position, but a decent position there. John Turntine, of course, we talked about. Kenye Pepe is an interesting one. He's at an IMG Academy. He
Mhm.
likes Texas, but they've really got to push to get him back on campus. If they can do that, they've got a good chance. Aaron Gregory, you see there, the wide receiver from Georgia, who's
Mhm.
committed to Texas A&M. Texas is still working on him, talking about getting him to campus. You see KJ Edwards, Dia Bell. Braylon Womack is a borderline 5-star safety out of Mississippi. He
Mhm.
released a top 4 that did not include Texas.
Hmm.
But I talked to him down in San Antonio. He goes, yeah, but that's kind of a flexible top 4. And he goes, he wants to get back to Texas for another visit. He's visited previously. So I don't think things are entirely dead there. You see Tank King, Tyon King, goes by Tank King. Uh, the linebacker, Kosi Apollo is another linebacker. Those guys probably will both be in this weekend. So, we can go down this list. There's probably 100 and some odd offers, but those are all, rivals 100 types. Um, Most of those guys are probably rivals top 50 players in the country that I think Texas has a legitimate shot on. And you said it on more. I mean, we're kind of in the beginning stages of this. Texas has 2 commitments. They don't normally push for a lot of early commitments the way like we're seeing A&M do and Georgia sometimes does. I mean, Texas will host its junior day this weekend. They may get
Mhm.
one commitment, a couple commitments, but they may come out of that with no commitments, which we've seen in the past. And people will panic like, what's going on with Texas? Well, Texas doesn't really ramp up their efforts until the summer was when we start seeing just this wave after wave of commitments. But this weekend will be big for just kind of laying the foundation with a lot of these guys.
Didn't you have a London Smith update recently, Jason, the receiver out of Waco?
Yeah, I did. Again, another really good player that we haven't talked about. I don't know if he's coming in. He's not on my list for this weekend. Okay, but
Okay.
that doesn't mean he's not coming in. People kind of sometimes on my list. This is not when I put a list up like I have in my 3-2-1. It's not a definitive. Here's who's coming. Here's who's not. These are the guys who have directly confirmed with me.
Mhm.
I don't do
Mhm.
what I'm not going to say names, but I don't do what other people do. And just if someone else has someone on their list, I'm going to put them on my list. No, if a player doesn't confirm with me, then he's not on my list. And London has not confirmed his plans with
Mhm.
me, so I need to follow up with him. It's whatever Tuesday. I'll hit him up maybe tomorrow. But yeah, I did. He's out of Waco University. Loves Texas. Has been to Texas. You see there a handful of
Mhm.
times already. He's visited for a lot of recruiting events. Wouldn't shock me if he makes a short drive down I-35 to come in for the junior day on Saturday, but he has not directly confirmed with me, so he's not on my list at this point. But again, that list will evolve and update throughout the week.
Also, did someone asked about Felix Ojo? I feel like you had an update on him recently as well, Jason. I don't think it was in your 3-2-1, but I feel like previously you had a Felix Ojo update.
Yeah, I did. It might have been in my column last week or just a
Yeah.
war room or something. I don't know. But I talked to Felix. I actually talked to him a few weeks ago prior to the Navy All-American Bowl. And then I talked to him again last week down in San Antonio. He'll be at the junior day this weekend. I actually just added him this weekend. He confirmed this morning that he'll be at the junior day. Felix is pretty open. He mentioned, 7 or 8 schools that he's considering, Texas being one of them. Obviously, he's been to Texas a couple of times. Really likes Kyle Flood. Really likes just the direction of the Texas program. I think Texas is a really good shot to land Felix Ojo, and they'll get him back on campus this weekend.
Okay. All right. So, Jason, give us an idea for the junior day. Again, there's a string of recruiting events, and these are the guys that are going to be the 2026 class. Is this the first of like 2 junior days that they're having this year, Jason? Like, how does that go?
This year it's not, unless they have one, because the first weekend of February, it's like literally February 1st, I think it is an open weekend. You can have junior days and things that weekend, but then the rest of the month of February is all a dead period. Okay, so the recruiting calendar has changed. People that are watching this, if they've been following stuff for a long time, they'll remember Mac Brown way back when would have 2 junior days in February. Tom Herman would do the same thing. Well, those days are gone. February's a dead period except for that first weekend. So, some schools like A&M had junior days back-to-back weekends. Texas is only scheduled to have 1 junior day this coming weekend. Now, might they sneak in a couple players that first weekend of February for visits? Yeah, that's very possible and probably even likely. But it won't be a junior day per se, at least not right now. Unless they schedule something. So, what you'll see is they'll have a junior day this weekend, get a lot of their top guys in. And then the next opportunity will really be spring football, and guys can come in March and April. Obviously, the spring game, and then Texas always has. They'll have their official visits in June, and then July they usually have like a pool party type thing. So, but as far as true junior days, this is really the big one coming up this weekend. So this is a big event on Saturday.
Jason, I'm going to ask you who the guy you love is, but then maybe I should just ask who's the guy that returns your phone call, because that would probably be the guy that you love. Is there somebody in the 2026 class that you just absolutely just love? Like, you just like, this guy is just going to be amazing whenever he hits campus?
Oh, you know what? That's a really good question, and nobody's jumping to mind. There's actually one that jumps to mind, and sadly, Texas hasn't offered him. And I was actually chatting with him last night, and he's not coming to junior day. He goes, "No, they haven't offered me. They haven't invited me." But J.J. Mays is an offensive lineman from Pflugerville here, just an awesome kid. Javion Osborne's a really phenomenal young man. Like, if he ends up going to Texas, where you'll enjoy covering him for 2, 3, 4 years. He's just a high quality human being, but Javion sometimes is tough for me to get a hold of. So you're right. Sometimes it comes down to like, hey, who do I talk to the most? Felix Ojo's really good. Felix is really good. I haven't really found my Malik Murphy in this class yet. So, ask me after Saturday's junior day, and maybe I'll have a better answer next week. But again, I always say this, I'm pretty lucky because Texas doesn't recruit the bad apples, if you will. They do a good job of sorting character and talents. So I'm pretty lucky that they're all pretty good kids for the most parts. But I haven't really just kind of developed where I've just kind of clicked with somebody like that just yet.
Jaylee wanted to know for a $2 super chat. Hey, Jason, who's the running back you think we need in 2026? Says Ball. Who's he referring to?
Tredarian Ball. It wouldn't be Ball because he's already committed, Jay, to Oregon. He's a good player, and he liked Texas. Really good player, and he did like Texas. But we've the two that Texas is kind of focused in on. We mentioned KJ Edwards and Javion Osborne. Both those guys will be in this weekend. They're both Rivals 100 members. If Texas can get both of those guys, boy, you close up shop. You're like, hey, we're good, we're done. If you can get one of those guys, and then maybe if you miss on the other one, and maybe you have to go out and find a second back, you're probably okay with that even. But if Texas has a chance to get both those guys, I think KJ Edwards, the running back out of Carthage, right now I'd be surprised if Texas wasn't the pick. I talked to him a few weeks ago. He's pretty open, but I know when I talk to him, and I've seen him in person, there's just something different about the way he talks about Texas, and he's been to Texas a bunch. So I think Texas is in a really good spot there. Javion Osborne, Texas is in a really good spot, but other schools, including Michigan, are also very much in play there. So maybe a little bit more of a battle there for Javion Osborne. But if I'm picking two, those would be the guys, Jay, that I'd go with.
Each year, Jason, it's a the strength and weaknesses at different positions in the state. If for 2026 class, which position is the strongest slash deepest that you think going into there? Which one is like a little bit thin? And I'm probably going to guess tight end, right? It's always like only two. It's
Yes.
usually only like two or three. But which is strongest in the state, and which is the one that's just is going to be a little bit tougher?
Yeah, tight end would be a good guess, Omar, in terms of what's going to be a little bit tougher. There's just if I look at their offer list, they have offered a couple tight ends. Actually, only one in state, Zachary Turner out of Duncanville. They've offered some out of state guys, but some of those guys have already committed. The guy Brock Harris, who's is phenomenal. He's out of Utah. He didn't include Texas in his top 5. Camden Jensen's a guy to Colorado that they offered. And when I talked to him a few weeks ago, he's like, yeah, Texas is in there, but they're behind some other schools. So I don't know what they're going to do at tight end. And you're right. That would be one of the weaker positions. I don't know that it's incredibly deep in the defensive backfield. Normally we see some truly elite players from the state of Texas. There's really not that guy necessarily in the state this year. If I'm pulling up the state rankings, if I'm picking like the position that maybe is the most top heavy or has the most depth, it'd be offensive line for sure. We've talked about a lot of those guys, and also running back. And we've talked about, there's some really good. I mean, you look at running back. KJ Edwards is number 3 in the state. Trudarian Ball, number 4 in the state. Davion Gross, a guy Texas hasn't even offered, is number 7 in the state. Javian Osborne, number 12 in the state. These are the rivals rankings. So I'd probably say offensive line and running back. And there's also a couple of really good receivers, including Caden Finley, Jordan Clay, we haven't talked about, out of San Antonio, a guy that's really high on Texas, Jalen Lott. And Jalen Lott and Caden Finley, their dads both played at Texas. So receiver, offensive line, running back are probably the 3 that are most top heavy in terms of elite talents.
Jason, tell me when we start looking at maybe a little bit from like 2025, and I didn't know if your opinions on this have changed, but it seems like it's so hard. And by the way, Benji said just wanted to say thank you for the updates. That's he didn't even have didn't even put anything, didn't have a question, but he just want to say
thank you. And thanks to Ben for being such a loyal viewer. He's always in the chat with good questions.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Very good. Very well informed. Jason, it just seems so hard to get it. All these coaches have always talked about putting a wall around the state of Texas, right? For recruiting. And it's just difficult. We saw DeCorian Moore go to Oregon last year. Devin Sanchez in that class for Susie. He goes to Oklahoma, which I guess technically is Texas-ish, right?
Shame on you, Anwar. Shame on you. No, Oklahoma is not Texas-ish.
Proximity-wise. Proximity-wise, okay? You can probably get to Oklahoma than El Paso, right? Faster, right? Just going to throw that out there, right? Pettijohn goes to Ohio State. I mean, obviously, Texas gets like a Lance Jackson, right? You get Kalik Lockett, but Dorian Brew goes to, Oregon. I'm just saying, like, as we approach 2026, are we at the point where you just say, hey, even if they are the top guys in the state of Texas, if you get 2 out of the top 10, that's great, because expecting to do 5 out of the top 10, 6 out of the top 10 is just hard to do nowadays.
It's a good question. You don't want to concede, right? You don't want to say, oh, no, if you get 2 of the top 10, you don't want to go in with that attitude. But it is a different recruiting world than, we're going way back when Mac was here, and, we got to keep this top talent in state. Well, you still want to do that, but it's just a different world, Omar. I mean, Texas going to the SEC kind of opened the doors. It opened the doors for Texas to recruit that region, but it also helped open the doors, and frankly, A&M started it, but it opened the doors for other schools to come into Texas to recruit. And I just use the phrase a lot, like it's a smaller world than it used to be. The idea of going to Georgia or Florida or USC used to be like, oh my gosh, that's so far away. Well, now, man, jumping on a plane and getting to some place is not a big deal, especially these guys. They have NIL money, so they can fly their parents back and forth. let's just call it what it is. Some of these schools pay these recruits to come visit before they even commit. That happens. So, I mean, guys can go visit a lot easier, and it's worth their time and effort. It's just a lot easier. I mean, staying close to home is not the big factor that it used to be. I mean, yes, that's still a selling point. Texas uses that on some kids in state. Said, hey, stay in state. This is where your roots are. Come be great in your own state. And the biggest thing that these recruits don't sometimes think about, if you're a big recruit from the state of Texas and you go to the University of Texas and you do well and play well and win a championship, it opens doors for the rest of your life, right? Whether you go to the NFL or not. I mean, you look at guys like, obviously Vince Young, but I mean, so there is something to be said about that. I remember talking to Steve Wooster, who's a running back from Texas, rest in peace, Steve Wooster. Was a Heisman runner-up, I believe, under Darrell Royal. Well, he was not going to go to Texas, and he and I talked about this. We had one of my favorite moments, just sitting there, just chatting with him, just talking about his career. And he didn't like his position coach at Texas. And he's like, he wasn't going to go to Texas. He's going to go to LSU. Well, Darrell Royal goes and sits down with him in his house and says, Steve, where do you want to live? You're from Beaumont, Texas area. Where do you want to live when you're 50 years old and your playing career is over? And he goes, I want to live in Texas. And he goes, well, then why the hell would you go anywhere but the University of Texas? And Wooster's like, it really resonated with him. That's why he ended up going to Texas and being a Hall of Fame career player. So, I'm kind of rambling here, but it is different. I mean, guys don't mind leaving the state, but Texas still sells them on, hey, you can be great at your flagship university in your state. And if you can get these kids or their parents to kind of see the big picture 20, 30, 40 years down the road, that helps. Hey, man, come be great at the University of Texas. You're never going to have to buy a meal again. No matter what happens with your football career in the pros or your life beyond football, you're going to be a legend in the state. Things are going to work out. But it is a different world than we're talking, 15, 20 years ago when most guys did stay close to home. Now, man, guys don't mind. Guys from whatever, New Jersey don't mind going to Southern Cal to play college football. Yeah. I mean, just NIL and everything else comes into play. So it's a little bit tougher to keep guys in state, but you still want to focus on that and make that happen if you can.
Well, a great example of that, Jason, might be a guy like Quan Cosby, right? Just really good at Texas, had a cup of coffee in the NFL, but he comes back here. He does, some TV, some radio, whatever, and he doesn't have to buy a drink wherever he goes because he was a part of that successful team.
Quan Cosby, the Shipley brothers. I mean, yeah, they can go on and on. Yeah, guys. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So no, to your point, there's that. Okay, Jason, a couple of more before we get out of here because I'm assuming we have a podcast.
Haven't heard otherwise, right? So, yeah.
I don't know. We always see what happens. I mentioned that Diabell is already committed. Texas already has a commitment from Chris Stewart, right? And they've had that for a while, which is crazy. But anything new with him for some people who may have been, who haven't followed it, but this kid's been committed since 2024. What's the situation with Chris Stewart as the kid from Pearland, Texas?
Yeah, before I get into Chris Stewart, Lewis Gaines in the chat says, what about Quebec from Carthage? He loves Texas a lot. He'll be in this weekend for the junior day, Lewis. He told me flat out, hey, his dad is a Texas fan, so that can't hurt. But to your question, Omar, Chris Stewart, yeah, from Shadow Creek. He's been committed for a while, as you said. June of last year he committed, which is weird. That was like kind of when all the action was hitting with the 2025 guys taking visits and July commitments. Well, then Chris Stewart comes out in June, like, I'm committing. Like, oh, that was kind of out of nowhere. So he is committed. He's been committed for a while. He'll be in town this weekend. But other schools are not giving up. He just picked up like a Miami offer this week. I think maybe there was another offer. I can't quite recall who it was. I know Miami was one. And he has told me, hey, he's going to take his other visits. He's going to take official visits. He'll probably take some unofficial visits. So I would label Chris as a soft commitment at this point. And, what I like about Chris is, you ask me who's one of my favorite guys. Chris would be up there. I mean, he's an awesome dude. He's just very honest, man. He's accessible and he's honest. I mean, he'll tell you, if we had him on the show right now, he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to take other visits, man. I want to enjoy the process. I want to compare apples to apples. He's not a guy that's going to sneak around necessarily and kind of do things behind, the staff's back, or, try to take a visit and then act like he didn't. He's been pretty open about it. So he is going to take other visits. He's committed to Texas. He loves that Texas commitment. He loves the idea of playing with Bell and some of these other quarterbacks that Texas has brought in, KJ Lacey, maybe even Arch. But he is a guy that's probably going to take several official visits, and Texas is going to have to work to hold on to him.
All right, last one. Jason.
Lewis said I work with Beck's dad. He's scared to fly. Okay, well, good to know. Then he definitely wants his kid down in Austin. Okay.
What?
And I've only talked to Beck one time. Me, I like to highlight good character young man. He is a high character young man. So if you work with his dad, tell his dad good job, because Quebec, when I talked to him, was like, wow, this kid's really impressive. So, and academics are important to him. So I think Texas has a really, really good shot there.
The biggest thing is he's scared to drive, Jason, because it's one thing to be scared to fly. That's convenience. But with the era of NIL, I mean, he can hook pops up with a really nice, RV, and is he scared to drive? Like that's what we need to know.
Just get him a driver, right? Like drive him from Carthage to Austin. Yeah, exactly.
Some people just love to drive, so there is that. All right, last thing, Jason.
Lewis, I'm gonna when I talk to Quebec this weekend, I'm gonna be like, hey, dude, I heard your dad's scared to fly. I'm gonna see if you're legit. I'm sure you probably are, but I'm gonna put a test in just a little bit. I'm saying,
you know what though, Jason? It's such a random fact that there has to be true.
It has to be. Like, what the hell? Where'd you hear that? He goes, yeah, that's true. My dad doesn't like to fly.
Yeah, that's like, so I was all like, hey, Jason, I hear you like, tuna fish on rye with onions, and you like to eat that on Tuesdays at 3:30. But like, wait a second, there's a lot of specifics here. Like, how do you know all this? So there is all that. Jason, the last thing is, how should Texas fans measure their freak out factor throughout the offseason? Because I feel like I can set my clock to, at some point we're going to say, why is Texas not have enough recruits? Why was Texas losing everybody? Then all of a sudden we're going to hit the summer, and it's going to start to have a couple here and there, and everyone's going to freak out. And and then next thing you know, everybody starts committing. Texas finished with the top 5 class, and everyone's like, oh, never mind. So is there a way we should like measure any pills we would take, rogue products, to go on this journey, or this is just what we're going to do year in and year out?
Yeah, I think it's just what we're going to do. And it's okay. It's okay to like, when DeCorian Moore commits to Oregon, or Riley Pettijohn commits to Ohio State, Devin Sanchez commits to Ohio State, it's okay to be like, oh, that sucks. Texas needs those guys. Okay. It's okay to admit that. But also, on the other side of that coin, just know that this staff is going to recruit well in the end. The big picture will come together and it'll fit just fine. But it's okay. If, God forbid, John Turntine commits to Texas A&M, or KJ Edwards commits somewhere else, I mean, it's okay to be like, damn it, that sucks, and they need to get their crap together. But they'll have a plan, they'll recruit well, it'll all work out in the end. But we're going to talk about the highs and the lows as we go through them. But you're right, it's kind of a pattern. Like, A&M's already loading up on commitments, and there'll be a time in June when we say, well, damn, Texas only has 3 or 4 commitments. What's going on? And why is this recruiting class struggling? And then July, the 1 month when I try to take a little bit of vacation, then they'll get like 8 commitments while I'm on vacation, or better yet, while you go on vacation.
That's just, well, there's that too.
And then in July, we'll be like, oh, all of a sudden they've got this windfall of commitments and things look fine. So it is what it is. It's the same pattern every year, but that's how this staff operates. And hey, they just finished with the #1 recruiting class in the country, right, in 2025. So it's hard to nitpick this group too much.
All right, Jason, get out of here. I'll close up to close up shop. I'll see you back at the modcast in another 20 minutes. All right.
Sounds good, man. See you in a little bit.
All right. See you, Jason. Jason Suckermel from orangebloods.com. Good stuff, good recruiting stuff. If you missed anything to start off the show, just head back there and do what everybody else does, which is watch it at like 1.5 speed, and then you get through the most of it pretty quickly. We will have the modcast. Modcast is coming up at noon. Most of us are snowed in here. I guess not snowed in. I mean, I got snow outside, not necessarily snowed in. There's people got it a little bit worse, but hopefully everyone's being safe on those roads. Don't do anything too crazy. I'll be back in the next 20 minutes, and I have some shows, I think today and tomorrow. I'm not quite sure. Definitely for tomorrow. Got to fly down to Florida, but that's a story for a different day. I'll say that for tomorrow. All right, then. You guys take care. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Remember, I always say, live each day like it was your last. One day it will be. Y'all take care. Do something special for yourself.